Hello, my name is Evie Solanas. Today, we'll be navigating the often turbulent waters of social justice, critical theory, and touching on Marxism briefly as it relates to these, particularly as the first two pertain to the field of education. In our current climate, social media and popular media are rife with oversimplifications and extreme positions that can distort our understanding of these complex theories. It is imperative to remember that misunderstanding a concept does not redefine its true meaning, just as a single part does not represent the whole, the fallacy of composition. I also want to highlight that wielding a concept like a blunt instrument, when one does understand it, or perhaps does not, but chooses to apply it improperly, is equally detrimental. Such misunderstandings and misuses often lead to straw man fallacies, where arguments are misrepresented to make them easier to attack. As we discuss these topics, remember that our goal is to transcend misunderstandings and misuses. We seek to engage with these ideas authentically, with the intent to enhance our collective discourse. Only through sincere engagement and application can we honor the true spirit of critical theory and social justice and avoid the pitfalls of those who, through ignorance or malintent, fail to contribute constructively to the conversation. Let's start with our first simple question. What is social justice? Social justice is the pursuit of a society where the distribution of resources is equitable and all members of society have the opportunity to participate fully in shaping their lives and communities. It is a concept rooted in the idea that every individual deserves equal economic, political, and social rights and opportunities. At its heart, social justice is about dismantling barriers, be they rooted in race, class, gender, or other forms of identity, that prevent people from realizing their potential and accessing the benefits of society. It seeks to correct the imbalances of power and privilege to create an environment where fairness and equity are not just ideals, but lived realities. So, what then is social justice in education? Social justice in education encompasses a wide array of concerns, extending beyond race, diversity, and gender to include often overlooked aspects such as age, ability, and sexual orientation. The essence of social justice in schools is to ensure equitable learning opportunities and high expectations for all students, with fair representation in educational programs. Social justice also involves welcoming participation from families and the community and safeguarding against discrimination on any grounds. Leaders dedicated to social justice actively engage with all school stakeholders to fulfill these ideals. Theo Harris, 2010, for example, conducted a detailed study of 6 schools where leaders successfully cultivated an environment endorsing principles of critical race theory, to be discussed later in this video. These leaders fostered inclusive educational practices, ensuring that all students, regardless of their background or abilities, had access to a challenging and enriching curriculum without being segregated for additional support. They also prioritized professional development for staff, valued their contributions, and maintained high expectations for student achievement. They effectively engaged families in discussions and decision-making, utilizing various communication methods, including those in families' native languages. Addressing the needs of LGBTQ+ students is also a critical aspect of social justice in schools. Given the increased risk of academic and mental health challenges faced by LGBTQ+ youth, largely due to stigma and discrimination, schools must understand sexual orientation and gender identity, or SOGI, that is, SOGI, problems to protect these students. While anti-bullying programs are beneficial, research indicates that many do not specifically address SOGI concerns, leaving LGBTQ+ students inadequately supported. To foster a more inclusive environment, research-backed strategies include establishing support groups like gay-straight alliances, promoting mutual respect through teacher advocacy, and integrating LGBTQ+ inclusive content into curricula. Despite the efficacy of these approaches, schools often encounter hurdles, such as district policies and public opposition, when attempting to implement inclusive curricula. Lugg and Murphy, 2017, propose that school leaders and teachers can navigate these challenges by leveraging their autonomy to interpret policies in ways that best support LGBTQ+ students. Educators are often referred to as street-level bureaucrats, operating with significant independence and tasked with delivering services in potentially adverse circumstances. As such, teachers and principals can utilize their discretionary power to foster a safer and more supportive environment for all students, aligning with the core tenets of social justice in education. As we consider the landscape of progressive educational practices, it becomes evident that simply embracing multiculturalism falls short of the transformative change necessary for genuinely equitable schools. Ladson-Billings and Tate, 1995, criticize multiculturalism for not offering the radical change needed within the current system. Yet, the burgeoning emphasis on social justice in education may indeed serve as a bridge toward the more profound goals of critical theory, or rather, its extension, critical race theory. This pivot toward social justice within U.S. schools and educational institutions reflects a growing acknowledgement of critical race theory's ambition to dismantle racism and other forms of systemic inequality. Social justice in education is not a mere addendum to existing frameworks. Rather, it is a foundational pillar of critical race theory that addresses a spectrum of challenges and problems that impact learning environments. As we transition now to a deeper discussion on critical theory, keep in mind that social justice represents a concerted effort to reshape educational landscapes. It is through critical theory that we explore the mechanisms by which social justice can be more than an ideal, transforming into actionable strategies that redefine and uplift the educational experiences of all students. So, what is critical theory? Critical theory is a lens through which a group of educational scholars analyze and challenge societal structures, and has notably influenced our understanding of organizational dynamics and leadership within educational institutions. These theorists are particularly critical of traditional hierarchical school systems, known for their top-down authority and limited space for voices from typically underrepresented groups. Critical theory posits that societal oppression, whether cultural, ethnic, racial, or gender-based, is often inadvertently upheld by the oppressed themselves. This happens because those in power have the means to shape societal beliefs to align with their own, convincing the oppressed that the status quo is in their favor. Palmer and Maramba, 2011, describe this phenomenon as a situation where the oppressed work to maintain the system that disadvantages them, thereby consenting to their own oppression. Marxist critical theorists argue that this dynamic is evident in capitalist societies where the working class supports a system that benefits the capitalist elite without recognizing their own subjugation. This lack of awareness is attributed to the control over social institutions like the press and education, which promote the interests and worldview of the ruling class. In education, Paulo Freire's seminal work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, examines how traditional educational practices can suppress marginalized groups. Freire argues against the banking model of education, where students are passive recipients of knowledge. Instead, he advocates for a problem-posing approach that fosters critical dialogue between teachers and students, positioning learners as active participants in their education. This concept of critical pedagogy suggests that education can be a vehicle for social change. Critical theory's American roots were further established through the contributions of scholars such as Michael Apple and Henry Giroux, with others like Derek Bell, Richard Delgado, and Peter McLaren expanding the discourse. Jonathan Kozol's investigations into the impact of poverty on U.S. schools highlighted how underfunding and a lack of qualified teachers in impoverished schools obstruct students' educational attainment. When critical theory is specifically directed toward race and education, it evolves into what is known as critical race theory, often abbreviated CRT. CRT acknowledges the existence of an education debt, as termed by Ladson-Billings, which refers to the historical accumulation of systemic inequalities that disproportionately affect minority students. CRT aims to rectify the opportunity gap, ensuring that all students have the resources to fulfill their educational potential, thus addressing the broader policy implications beyond mere high-stakes testing. Gloria Ladson-Billings, a key proponent of CRT in education, recognizes the foundational work of Carter G. Woodson and W.E.B. Du Bois, who utilized race as a lens to assess social inequality. CRT's main principles include counter-storytelling, acknowledging the permanence of racism, recognizing whiteness as property, understanding interest convergence, and critiquing the colorblind approach of liberalism. In practice, implementing CRT involves giving a platform to the lived experiences of people of color to challenge racial stereotypes and foster anti-racist practices within educational organizations. Acknowledging significant events and figures in the civil rights movement, such as the March on Washington, the Selma marches, and the election of Barack Obama, CRT emphasizes the importance of these milestones in amplifying the voices of people of color. Critical theory and its extension into critical race theory serve as powerful lenses through which we can critically examine societal structures, particularly within the realm of education. The value of critical theory lies in its ability to illuminate the often invisible systems of oppression that maintain the status quo and perpetuate inequalities. The misunderstandings surrounding critical theory and critical race theory stem largely from misconceptions that they aim to divide rather than to understand and bridge societal divides. Critics may perceive them as solely accusatory, rather than as frameworks for identifying and rectifying systemic problems. Education stands as a public good and a reflection of a society's health. It is both an individual right and a collective asset that underpins the well-being and advancement of a community. When education is approached as a means of encouraging social justice, it transcends the basic transfer of knowledge and becomes a transformative process that equips individuals with the critical thinking skills necessary to participate fully in society. However, education's potential is only realized when it is accessible and equitable. The quest for social justice in education is not just about changing curricula or pedagogical methods. It is about ensuring that every student has the opportunity to succeed, regardless of their background. This requires a commitment to dismantling barriers and creating inclusive, supportive environments that reflect and celebrate diversity. The need for unity in organizing for individual and collective betterment is paramount. Education, as a microcosm of society, benefits from the active participation of all stakeholders: teachers, students, parents, and community members, working collaboratively toward shared goals. This collaborative spirit is necessary to produce an atmosphere where differences are not just tolerated, but can be valued as a source of strength and innovation. Thus, the embrace of critical theory and critical race theory in education is a call to action for a more just and equitable society. It challenges us to look beyond the surface, to question and confront entrenched inequalities, and to work together for a future where every individual can thrive. It is a reminder that our collective well-being is tied to the success of the most marginalized among us, and that education is a potent tool for societal change. As we move forward, it is crucial that we continue to engage in thoughtful dialogue, critique our institutions constructively, and seek solutions that reflect our shared humanity and collective aspirations for a better world.